So online with us today, we've got Nicholas Landol, who at a young age went with his family to the Yucatan Peninsula and seen a bunch of those ruins over there and fell in love with the Mayans, the Aztecs, and the archaeology, and at a young age started studying some things and come up with some interesting theories on some things, and he's going to be sharing that with us today. So with that said, Nicholas, take it away. Tell us about you.
Okay, so as you said, when I was 16 years old, I went to the Yucatan. I saw the ruins at Tulum. I saw the ruins at Coba. I didn't make it to Chichen Itza, though. I saw Tulum and I saw Coba, and I climbed the Coba Pyramid. It's a 130-foot pyramid. And while it's not as tall as the pyramid at Giza, it is pretty impressive, especially when you think that the Mayans didn't even have wheels for their carts. They dragged everything up there, all the stones on top of each other.
Yeah, to see what all they did, with their stonework and all that, it is amazing. If anybody gets a chance to go to the Yucatan Peninsula and see those, Coba, Tulum, Chichen Itza, do it, man, because it's well worth your trip.
So, I was captivated by how they were able to build such a tall structure and their knowledge that they had. Because while they were lacking grain, while they were lacking the wheel that the old world cultures had, they still managed to surpass them in many other ways. But before we can talk about the Maya, I think we need to talk about the Olmec. You're familiar with the Olmec, aren't you?
Yep, a little bit I am. And then they're an older culture, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the Olmec were at their peak around 1,000 years before the Common Era, so around the same time that King David was fighting the Philistines. Many of the Afrocentrists that are cropping up today, they try to pin the Olmecs as having been African, simply because they feel that the faces on their stone heads appear African. But I don't agree with that idea. I think that many of the faces do appear Amerindian, which is what you would expect. And today results. What?
Oh, I was just gonna say that's interesting because a lot of people do think that some of them, all them sculptures there, some of them sculptures that look, like they're Africans. So, anyways, that's interesting.
Yeah. So as I was saying, the DNA doesn't appear to support the idea, which I feel that many of the Afrocentrists are ignoring. The Olmec were situated in Veracruz, in that part of Mexico. Now, unfortunately, Veracruz has a different reputation these days because that's where a lot of the cartels are situated.
Ah. So there's probably a lot of interesting things in that area that we really the archaeologists really can't get to and explore then, huh? That's interesting. I didn't know that.
But centuries ago, Veracruz was more of a hot spot for civilization and culture. But the modern Indians in Veracruz, people have done genetic studies on them, and what they found is that the Mixte-Zoquian language family, people from that language family, when they did the genetic test, they found that they're haplogroup Q. And haplogroup Q, those are represented by people from the Americas and people from Asia. They're not people from Africa. You're familiar with haplogroups?
A little bit, yeah. So I'm going to interrupt you here for just 1 minute. How old are you?
I'm turning 19 soon.
Man, so you're 19, man, and you've really had a love and interest for this, and being that age and digging into that deep into the DNA and the things like that, man, you really must have a love for this stuff, an interest in this stuff.
Mm-hmm. So as I was saying, that seems to disprove, for the most part, the idea that the Olmec were African.
Okay.
Because the Indians, at least in the region today, they have DNA that is not African DNA. So to say that the Africans were the ones that introduced the Americas and taught them how to make written language is quite untrue. I think they evolved pretty independently on their own. They learned how to write. They learned how to study the stars and study math, all on their own. So now that we got that out of the way, I think it's time now to talk about the Mayans at their peak.
Okay.
The Olmec vanished around 400 years before the Common Era, and then after that window, a city called Teocon appeared during that about that 400-year window, and then around the first centuries of the Common Era, you see the classic Maya. That's where all those Mayan cities that we're familiar with crop up.
Ah.
The earliest city, I believe, is El Mirador, around like 100 years before the Common Era. And then from there, around 500 AD is when the Golden Age, I would say, started. The city-states, what the audience needs to remember is that the city-states were not unified. They were all independent, and for the most part, they did not get along with each other. In the late 500s, 562 thereabout, there was this big war between Calakmul and Tikal. You've heard of Tikal, haven't you?
Yeah, isn't he that he's that Mayan emperor at was it Teotihuacan?
No, not Tikal. Tikal.
Oh, okay.
When you see an image of a Mayan pyramid, it's usually either the one at Chichen Itza or it's the one at Tikal.
Yeah.
Those are the two that they tend to show typically.
Yep.
So, a war broke out between Calakmul and Tikal, and Calakmul was victorious and Cal was badly defeated. And from then on, they wanted revenge. And they would get that chance at revenge thanks to a young boy who is probably even younger than I am now.
Really?
And you just said his name. Tikal was born in Palenque, I believe in 603. I think that was his birth year. And when he was around 9, Calakmul launched a very brutal attack on Palenque. His father was killed in the battle, and from then on, his mother took control. It wasn't very uncommon for the Mayan city-states to have female rulers. They seemed to be ahead of their times in terms of gender equality. And Tikal's mother would always tell him to stand up for himself and to not forget what Calakmul had done. So, when he was in his teenage years, he began to train how to fight. And after negotiating with Tikal, he figured that he could help them get their revenge in the same way that he was getting his revenge. And they landed Calakmul in an attack that they wouldn't forget. The leader of Calakmul, Scroll Serpent, was killed in the battle, and from that point on, they would never again return to Palenque. And from that point on, Tikal would be remembered as a warrior. Now, are you familiar with Tikal's sarcophagus lid?
I don't know about the sarcophagus lid, but is that the one that they show on, like, Ancient Aliens, where he looks like he's riding in a spaceship or something like that?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay, yeah.
Now, what I need to talk about Tikal's lid is that I think Ancient Aliens, among other things, does a very poor job at portraying Tikal's lid. It's very inaccurate.
Okay.
Now, the first time I realized how off Ancient Aliens was about things was when I started to read up about Zechariah Sitchin. Are you familiar with that name?
Yes. I am.
Have you ever heard about how a lot of his work has been shown to be inaccurate?
I haven't. I don't really follow him. I've heard his name. I hear things every now and again, but I haven't really followed it and kept up with that, so I haven't. So fill me in.
So the cuneiform tablets, the ones that he says that he deciphered and that they state that the gods came to create humans to mine gold, the words he says that mean gold and gods, the translations aren't accurate. When they started coming out with cuneiform dictionaries, people realized that the translations that he gave weren't accurate.
Ah.
And he never really cites which tablets he used.
Uh-huh.
So I am quite doubtful of his claims. And likewise, just as ancient aliens portrayed Zechariah's claims as being factual, they also portrayed Eric von Daniken's claims as being factual regarding the sarcophagus lid of Pakal. And the first thing you see on top of Pakal's sarcophagus lid is that you see a bird. The ancient aliens don't go into the different symbols on the lid. They just ignore them. But the bird is Itzamna. He is the chief god in the Mayan pantheon, and he is up in the air. And what the lid is really portraying is the upper world, the middle world, which is where we live, and the underworld.
Ah.
From Pakal's transition down into the underworld. Now, you'll see a cross in the middle of the lid, and that cross represents the tree of life. The top half of the cross that goes upward, that's the upper world, where Itzamna lives and the gods live. The middle of it, that's the world we live on, the living world. And the bottom half, well, I guess the bottom third, is the underworld. And that's where Pakal's going to. And right above his head, you see a serpent, and that's the vision serpent. And they believe that would guard the underworld and allow people to pass through into it. So
in their beliefs, is the underworld is that like a good place, a bad place, or what would you think?
So part of the Mayan mythology is called the hero twins, and in the story of the hero twins, they defeated the bad lords of the underworld. They were called the lords of the Balba, and when they defeated them, they kind of opened up the gateway to allow people to pass through into the underworld when they die. And according to the legend, the hero twins descended up in the sky, and one became the sun, and the other became the moon.
Ah.
So because of their actions, I would say that the underworld was a place where peace could be found. Now that I got that out of the way, I think I want to talk about the Mayan tools, the technology. Now, most people would believe that the Mayans had no metal, but I would say that that's quite untrue.
Yeah, I think they found hardened copper. To see some of the stelas that they carved is unbelievable. They had to have some kind of a hardened, chiseled tool or something like that to do the carvings they did.
Now, the main metal that was native to the Americas that the Indians used was copper. They didn't have bronze, which would be the product of copper and tin combined, which is what the old world had.
Mm-hmm.
But they did have copper, and there is evidence that they were mining copper. Now, that was in North America, where New York, Minnesota, around the place I am. Now, down further south, the metal that would be used would be jade. Now, the jade that most people are familiar with is the green jade, but there is evidence that the Mayans had a harder jade, which is called black jadeite. And black jadeite would have been probably what would have been used to make those chisels on those glyphs.
Really? Okay.
Not just stone.
Okay.
Now, the man who came up with this idea about black jadeite, his name is James O'Con, and what he stated was that the reason why there aren't a lot of finds of black jadeite is because they weren't buried with the rulers. They were buried with the tradesmen.
That would make sense.
With the artisans.
That would make sense that they're buried with their tools.
Because, of course, rulers were not making the glyphs. The artisans were. The crafters were.
Yeah.
James O'Connor has also written about how he believes that the bridges were a lot different from what people would think, that they weren't just rope bridges, that they had platforms that came out of the river to hold them up, similar to the Roman bridges. Pillars, I should say, coming out of the water.
Yeah.
To hold up the bridge. Now, the Mayans as well were much more expensive traders than what people would accept. And we know that for two reasons. Number one, because there's copper bells in Ecuador that are the same as the copper bells found in the Yucatan. So that would show that traders had to have been going back and forth from the Yucatan to Ecuador and vice versa. And the second reason is because we found ball courts in the Caribbean.
Hey, just for your information, you probably don't know this, but I was talking with an archaeologist down in here in Utah, down kind of by Canyonlands, and they found in a burial, they found some copper bells up here in Utah. So that kind of surprised me, because they're saying they figured there was a trade route between the Mayans, the Aztecs, up into Utah up here. So just for your information.
Okay.
They also found some macaw feathers up here, the copper bells, and some other things, turquoise, things like that. So
there's a location in the Dominican Republic called Raitella, and there's the remnants of a ball court of some type.
Really?
And they also found their bones, which showed evidence that there was sacrifice associated with the ball court. And sacrifice of humans was not something that was typical of Taínos, who were the people of the Caribbean. So that would show that this was likely a Mayan ball court. Now, let's move on to Chichen Itza. Have you been to Chichen Itza?
Yes.
Can I ask you, do you remember what time of the year it was?
It was probably in February, something like that.
Okay, so you didn't make it for the spring equinox or the fall equinox? No,
I didn't there, but when I knew a person who was a tour guide in Tulum, and he had pictures of the equinoxes and the solstices when they would shine through that archway or that gate or that deal. He was showing me the pictures there, but I didn't know about anything at Chichen Itza. I didn't, but I did at Tulum.
Yeah, well, in Chichen Itza, the equinox makes the form of the serpent.
Ah.
On the pyramid. It makes like the shadow of the serpent appears.
Really?
And we believe this was on purpose, of course, because the head at the bottom of El Castillo in Chichen Itza, which is their pyramid, is the head of a serpent, or the serpent god called Kukulkan. So the shadow runs down to the bottom of the pyramid where the head is. So it's evidence that they were trying to show Kukulkan's form appear.
That's interesting to me.
Now,
so, do you know anything about? You know a little bit about the giants too, right? You've done a little studying on the giants. Well, I've been researching and coming up that where these giants are, a lot of times there's these serpents, either kind of carved or shadows, or I don't know how true that is, but it's something interesting to me, and I didn't know really how the shadows were, but you're telling me that there was a shadow of a serpent at Chichen Itza. That's really interesting to me, so thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah, the serpent you're probably thinking of is the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio. Is that it you're thinking of?
Well, that too, but no, there's others here in the West. So, but yeah, you're right. They found giants in those mounds there in that area back in Ohio and that.
I'm not really familiar with any Mayan stories about giants, but I know the Aztecs had giants.
Yeah. Yep.
And their race of giants were called Kinametsin. And at first the Aztecs fought Kinametsins, but, however, one of the giants did end up helping them fight.
Ah.
against Cortez when Cortez showed up.
Huh.
And although he lost the battle, it seems like that was their last great strike against Cortez, kind of their last stand. And after he was killed, it didn't take too much longer to take over Tenochtitlan. And from there, that was basically the end of Mesoamerica. Again, back to Chichen Itza.
Uh-huh.
Chichen Itza has 365 steps, and each step is supposed to have been a day of the year. So it shows that the Mayans were good with understanding cycles and how long the year was. Now, moving on from that, I do want to talk a little bit about transatlantic connections. As I said earlier, I don't believe the Africans came here, but I do believe there is some evidence that Indonesians came here, or at least Mexico, because a lot of people have noted that there are a lot of similarities between Indonesian architecture and Mayan architecture. There's a pyramid in Indonesia called Aztec, and when you compare the picture of it to a Mayan pyramid, it looks so much alike.
Really?
In form of the way the platforms, and the way of the form of their many steps. By the way, going a little off track, the name of the Aztec warrior that fought Cortez, that was reported to have been a giant, his name was Zilla Katzen, if you ever want to check him out. But he was the one that Cortez's forces ended up killing. But anyway, going back to Indonesia, I think Aztec shows a lot of similarity in the Maya and Indonesian architecture. But I don't think the Indonesians showed the Mayans how to build pyramids. I think the Mayans showed the Indonesians how to build pyramids.
So do you think the Indonesians came over here, or the Mayans went over there?
I think the Indonesians came over here.
Okay.
But when they saw pyramids, they came back with that knowledge of that architecture.
Okay.
So, another thing is that you see images of elephants in Mayan art at Campeche. There is a figurine of an elephant. Some people would say it's a tapir, but I think its ears, like the size of the ears and the length of the trunk distinguishes it from a tapir. It does look to me like an elephant. Of course, there were mammoths in the Americas, but they were long dead and gone by the time of the classic Maya culture. I think it shows that there was some contact between East and the Maya.
Is it a common thing, the elephants, or they've just found a few of these figurines or things around, or do you know?
There is the elephant at Campeche. There's a statue that looks somewhat like an elephant at Copan, and then there is an elephant jug that was Olmec. And some people believe that's evidence that people from perhaps the Indus Valley or India or some part of East Asia came here even earlier than Indonesian times, the Olmec had. The Maya, they seem to have knowledge that was in some ways superior from the old world. Now, their knowledge of eclipses that's been recorded in like the codexes, that is something that we know the Greeks knew as well. So it wasn't just the Maya. The Greeks had knowledge of eclipses. However, there is something they did have that I don't believe any other culture had. And this is the theory that I am proposing now, which is the knowledge of all 8 planets. And that would set them apart. They made references to a god called Bologna-Yokte, which translates to the god of 9 supports. And archaeologists are not sure at all what exactly that term refers to, Bologna-Yokte. However, I do believe that it refers to the Earth's 9 supports, which are the 7 other planets, the sun, and the moon. Now, as far as what archaeologists have found, no ancient culture knew of any planet beyond Saturn. They knew of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, but not Uranus and Neptune.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Because those 2 are too far away to be seen with the naked eye. They can only be seen with telescopes, and the Maya, of course, had no telescope. So many people feel there's no way that they could have known about Uranus or Neptune. However, there is one way they could have. When one planet passes through another planet, when it's in conjunction with that planet, its rate in which it moves accelerates. So if the Mayans saw Saturn coming into conjunction with Jupiter, and they saw that the planets started to accelerate when they came in conjunction with each other, they would have remembered that when they saw Saturn come in conjunction with Uranus, even though they couldn't see Uranus because it was too far away, they saw that Saturn was accelerating. So they knew that there must have been a planet that it was coming in conjunction with, even though it was too far away for them to see.
Interesting.
And the same thing with when a planet came in conjunction with Neptune. They could see that it accelerated. So I think that would show how the Mayans could have known about all 8 planets. And the 7 planets outside of the Earth, along with the Sun and the Moon, that would make the 9 supports, the 9 other celestial bodies. The Mayans did not need Africans or Europeans to teach them knowledge. They could come up with it on their own, and they could surpass the old world even in some of their discoveries. The European arrival to the Americas was basically an apocalypse. As much as 80% of the indigenous population died.
Yep.
Of course, the greatest killer of all was their diseases. Warfare caused them to lose battle, but diseases caused them to basically be eradicated.
So without even trying, it was kind of a germ warfare.
Well, of course, even before the germs took them down, the Europeans were already quite hostile to them.
Yep.
But, of course, in the 1800s, early 1900s, people wrote about this as if the Europeans had civilized the indigenous people. In many ways, they had uncivilized them. They caused them to become impoverished. And that's what eventually would lead to the situation that Latin America finds itself in now, with the huge difference between the poor and the rich.
Mm. Yeah, and what's sad is they tried as hard as they could, and they managed to do it, erase a lot of their history, destroy the codexes, destroy their history so that they could convert them to Christianity and lose their history and ancestry and what they was taught.
Exactly. However, I think in terms of the case of Cortez, I think in some ways he did liberate the Mexican Indians from the Aztecs, because in many ways the Aztecs did rule with an iron fist.
Yep, they ruled the Mayans, and the Mayans joined forces with Cortez to help conquer the Aztecs.
Yeah, the Tlaxcala, they were called, were his main Indian allies, because they figured that at least their life would somewhat improve under the Spanish and under the Aztecs, because Aztecs basically enslaved them and, of course, picked them for sacrifice. I think what would have worked the best would have been if Cortez tried to rule Mexico independent of the Spanish kings, because that way he could have created his own government, and no one would have told him what to do, and I think he could have done it. But, of course, he gave the Spanish king his promise, and instead Mexico simply became a colony. Now, the Maya, of course, died out long before Cortez came, at least the classic Maya. Their killing blow came around 900, and that would be in part because of warfare between them. A leader named Juanac started a civil war between the city-states. He hated Chichen Itza, and he would do his best to bring it down. He was from Mayapan, and he basically started the domino effect that led to the Maya's collapse. Drought kicked in, famine kicked in, but it all started with Juanac. And of course, the jungles eventually took over, and the illness from the jungles took over. Mosquitoes, of course, were everywhere. And eventually the Maya went back to a nomadic lifestyle. Some people believe that some of them might have migrated up north and created Cahokia.
Oh, really?
I mean, I think there are artifacts that show that Cahokia wasn't involved with some sort of trade, at least with northern Mexico. So I think at least some of the survivors from the Aztec collapse could have filtered through up north. But I think in many ways, Cahokia's culture was much different from the Maya culture. And of course, some of the survivors from the Maya collapse eventually came to the land that would become known as the city of Tula. Are you familiar with Tula?
I'm not familiar with Tula, but I am Cahokia. Cahokia is one of the largest earthen mounds, earthen pyramids. It's not out of rocks. It's built out of earth, and they deposited hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tons of dirt to build a pyramid.
So at Tula, they created a new civilization called the Toltec.
Okay.
The Toltec were originally believed to have been peaceful, at least at the beginning, but eventually their king was killed during an invasion, and from that point on, the Toltec became more aggressive. And they created the god who would eventually be incorporated to the Aztec pantheon. The god Quetzalcoatl was at first a Toltec god.
Ah.
So in some ways, Aztecs did evolve from the Maya, even though they were further up north. Of course, in many ways, the Maya are still here. I mean, there are Maya speakers in Yucatan, in Belize, in Guatemala. In some ways, they did not die off at all. And I think that their legacy, in many ways, would be the foundation for civilization in North America as a whole. In many ways, their society was the mother culture. The way people say that the Africans were the mother culture when they became the Olmecs, they were not. There's evidence that the Maya culture in some state was around at the same time as the Olmec. So even the Olmecs themselves, even though they weren't African, they still weren't completely the mother culture. The Mayans were there back then, and they are here today. They are the mother culture.